Hello everyone, it's GigaBeef here, and today we're going to be making some money using the Hideout. The Hideout is pretty much always worth investing in, but especially early on, you can make a lot of money here because the marketplace is the most active and prices are pretty wild. So let's dive straight into the med station. Now, my med station is level 2, so you won't be able to see just as easily exactly which ones are level 1, but the level 1 crafts are the AI2s, it is the Salewa kits, it is the Calloc hemostatic applicators, and it is the CMS surgical kits. Now, of these ones, the one that I focus on the most is the AI2s, and this is because piles of meds at this point are less than 9,000 rubles each, so you could grab one of these and you could turn them into 3 AI2s, and you don't have to sell these on the flea market, you can sell these directly to the traders because the traders buy AI2 kits for just over 3k, so until pile of meds are 9,000 or more, this craft will always make money. It's going to make a small amount of money, but it'll still make money. The other one that is interesting at this point, obviously, is the Salewa kit. Now, this is really good because you can get the ones that you need for the quest, but more importantly, if you're continuing to use car first aid kits in your raids like I do, when these get down to low levels, so try not to use the entire kit and leave it at 10 or 20 or 30 HP remaining, you can combine 2 of these together with 2 S marches, which then allows you to make a Salewa, which is then fine in raid, which then you can sell on the fleet. In the same vein, in terms of optimization, we have these hemostats, which a lot of people like using in raid, and so you can see because of that, these are locked up to trader 3 with therapist. People put them up at a lot higher and buy them up at a lot higher price because they like having 3 heavy bleed items in one slot. What this means is that if you do actually find one on a player that's not fine in raid, you can go and combine it with a cheap pile of med to basically launder it through the med station into a sellable hemostat, which you can then sell off onto other players. You could also, if you do find one yourself and you end up using it, you can then do the same thing. You can combine it with a pile of med, and then that allows you to sell that on the fleet, which is pretty sweet. At level 2, a couple of other crafts open out, but most of them are not really that interesting. They're usually useful for finishing quests, so you can create medical blood sets here, and you can create morphine injectors here for finding raid quests, which is pretty good. The only other one that I think is actually decent, maybe for making money, but you have to be a bit careful, are the IFAKs. So it makes 2 IFAKs from 2 piles of beds, 2 of these army bandages, and 1 of these S-March tourniquets. Now, army bandages you can't buy. I can't remember exactly which quests they are behind, but these go for sort of 3,200. Now, you can make them over in the lavatory, but I don't think it's really that good. Sometimes people are selling them right down here, so if you can buy these cheap or you find them in raid or something, then it can be worth using these in the craft to make some IFAKs if you want to swap between AI2s, the IFAK craft, and then trying to do these 2 whenever you possibly can from in the raid. Right, next let's go over to the lavatory. So the lavatory is probably one of the least interesting units for making money early, but it's one of the best in terms of getting stuff for the hideout because you can make all sorts of cool things in here. Now, the one I think is good for profit is the paper into toilet paper that you can do at the start. Toilet paper typically goes for around 10,000 rubles on the flea market. You can go and see what it is. My system's a bit slow today, but yeah, so 9,000 to 10,000-ish on the flea market, and paper is usually sub 10k. So you're basically doubling your money doing this. Obviously, you have to pay some flea market fees as well. Outside of that, you can make a ton of different fabrics. The problem with all these is that they're typically used for high-end armor barters and other things like that. And so early game, the fabrics themselves are usually pretty cheap. And so normally they don't make money once you include the fee in them. The Kudura one is probably the most borderline. Kuduras are just under 10,000 rubles, so you can sell them for sort of 10k-ish. And these bags, the sling bags, you can buy directly from Ragman for 2. So there is a little bit of money to be made there, but it's very, very small. This allows you to effectively just swap back and forth between 2 crafts. This is kind of a filler craft for me, because if you want to maximize your crafting skill, you want to swap crafts every single time. Crafting the same thing over and over again gives you diminished skill points by a long, long way. So you always want to be swapping between different crafts. Now, the interesting part when you go up to Lavatory level 2 is this opens out a bunch of other things. Now, some of them do look pretty good. It also lets you make these magazines, which you can sell to people on the flea market because of Gunsmith. But typically these follow the prices of keg tape, so once you pay the fee, it's not usually that worthwhile. Hoses look like they're going to be a really good deal because they sell for anywhere from 90 to 100k normally. And the problem with these is that the inputs are relatively expensive and the price of hoses in-game from the trader perspective is very low. So the fee that you pay for selling corrugated hoses is incredibly high, and it takes 3 hours to make them. And so time that you actually spend working on it and the amount of money that you make often doesn't actually make it worth it. Once you've reached Ragman 2, you can start making fleeces, because you can make fleeces at Lavatory 2, you can only buy the hats at Ragman 2. So even though you get access to this maybe slightly earlier, you need Ragman 2 to do this one properly. And the reason why people are buying fleeces at the moment is because they need to mop up their damaged wall, the thing that you need before you make the gym, and that gives people debuffs in the hideout, and you minimize the debuff slightly by using the fleece to mop it up. So people are incentivized to buy this early. So you can make a bit of money if you turn these fleece hats into fleece. The other one that I've been doing from time to time is actually the Blackrock chest rig craft. So normally this one you usually do just for the quest, but these things are selling at around 50,000 rubles. And because of the fabrics are so cheap, normally about 10k for this, normally 10k for this, you need a sewing kit as the auxiliary item, so this always comes back. One of my favorite barters in the game for the Tarzan, if you get rid of exclude bartering offers, you can see that from Jaeger you can get a Tarzan rig for 1 hunting matches, and hunting matches are often under 10,000 rubles, which is very, very good. So that makes this craft 30k, then again you have to pay the little bit of a fee, but this does make some money. So between this one and the paper one, you can swap between those two and actually make some money, and fleece as well, depending on how fleece is trading at the time. The choice is yours. Now, let's swap over to the Workbench, which is the one that probably makes the most money. As you can see, Battlestate have introduced this new system where you can favorite your crafts that you do all the time, and those move up to the top, which is pretty cool. It means you don't now have to scroll through the entire list anymore once you found ones that you do like. So these are my favorites. I do like the wires craft. This one is always pretty good. This is my favorite one to do overnight at the moment, simply because it takes 2 hours, which is quite a long time, but it makes a lot of money. These cords you can buy between 30 and 40,000 rubles, and the wires are selling for 20,000 rubles. So a little bit of simple math will just tell you that that's going to make you a lot of money. This is also quite good if you don't want to maintain your hideout continuously all the time. The next one is this red gunpowder, which is also pretty decent. Between a red, a green, and a matches, you get 3 of these. And the beauty is that it's only 30 minutes. And so you can pretty much do this one, like go into a raid, come back out, it's finished, do a different one, come back out, go back to this one. So it's one that's great while you're actively playing. The final one, which is on a similar vein, if you just need to pop in and do a factory run or something, a yellow pliers turns into one of these round pliers. And what you want to do with the round pliers is you want to sell these to therapists, because they sell to therapists for about 17 or 18k. So there's no fees to worry about, and if you could buy these at under 10,000, down to 8, you could basically make 10,000 rubles in 15 minutes without doing anything, which is pretty good. And those are all available at level 1. There's actually a few others. There's like the AK-74N and things like that, but they're fluctuating a bit. I find these, for me, are the most profitable and easiest to do, and also they have decent timings depending on exactly where you are in your kind of hideout management scheme at the time. The beauty of Workbench 1 is that actually most of the profitable crafts just sit there, and when you go up to Workbench 2, there aren't actually that many others that you can do. Now there's one that I haven't favorited yet, which is going to be a decent one in a little bit, which is the Wi-Fi cameras into Nixor lenses craft, which is this one. And the reason why I haven't got this one yet is because you basically need to be able to buy Wi-Fi cameras in order to make this one function. So if we go over here, we can see that we can't buy it from Mechanic yet, because you need to have started a quest from Skier, which is called Informed Means Armed, before you can buy the Wi-Fi cameras from him. And one interesting part about this as well is this allows you to use any euros that you have to be able to turn those into rubles through the craft. So that one's pretty good, but you have to get on a little bit further in the quest line to be able to do this. Another one that can be good is the APM craft for 366 rounds, because there's very few people that can do this yet, and you can basically name your price. People will buy these at whatever price, so you can put them up for a very, very high amount if you can actually manage to get to this. This is at Workbench 2, and you need to be able to buy SP6 or find some SP6 to make this work, because they're on Prapor 3. So that's a pretty high level craft. I'm just sticking to these 3 at the moment. Now, moving over to the nutrition unit. Now, you'll be able to see what I'm doing in here, which is making condensed milks. Condensed milks are by far the best craft. This is at Nutrition 2. Unfortunately, Nutrition 1 really doesn't have anything good, in my opinion. The beauty about the condensed milk craft is that these sell again to the traders. You can sell them to either therapist or Jaeger buys them, which is very, very useful, because you can get Jaeger's rep up just by selling condensed milks to him. And what you find normally is that these 2 items price currently in the early wipe at around 15k each. You can buy a milk and you can buy a pack of sugar for about 30,000 rubles. This is just over at the moment, which is a little bit more than it normally is. So that's about 33k, and we can start this, and we'll be able to sell that at about 46,000 to the traders directly. So we're going to make about 12,000 rubles there, but usually it's about 15k, and it's leveling Jaeger's rep as well, which is extremely useful, and it only takes an hour. And there's not really anything else that you can make in here that really makes sense at this point. And as you can see, sugars are super cheap early wipe, so you kind of want to take advantage of that. Now, one thing that I'm working towards myself, but I haven't got there to yet, is the water collector level 3. Now, when you get here, this is actually really, really good. So you need to get generator level 3 and a whole bunch of other stuff to be able to get to this, and up to Jaeger 3. So it is quite tricky. But the thing about this is that once you get there, you can make a lot of money if you're there early. And the reason for this is because filters price extremely cheaply on the market at only about 18k, because the only uses for them in that water filtration system. And if you then make purified waters out of them, then we can see on the flea market again, these canisters with the purified waters, which is the output, are extremely expensive. And so you can make a ton of money if you get to this early, but obviously you need to get there as fast as you can. It's what I'm trying to do at the moment, is to get to this, because I think early wipe, this water collector is probably the single most profitable unit in the whole game, but you need to get there early to take advantage of the prices. So it's definitely not for everybody, but I think it's one to look out for, and it's one well worth mentioning. Now, the one module which is a special mention is the Christmas tree. I don't know how long this will be around for. I haven't actually even built it yet, but there's two that catch my eye in here. One which is the gas analyzer craft. So if you were struggling to find gas analyzers, you could potentially make one of these in 3 hours if you have one red, one purple, and one white bauble. And the other one is the Loadouts craft, which requires 2 purple baubles and 30 of the white ones. Now, the 30 white ones is probably not as hard as getting some of the rare ones, because the white baubles are all over the place. But what's interesting about this is that I do believe that the Loadouts craft has been removed from the med station. Maybe there's some quest or something that's required to find out how to make it, but we're not really sure yet. So if that is the case, then we're going to either have to find our Loadouts in raid like we always used to, which honestly is a real pain if you're not a shoreline main, or we're going to have to craft it in the Christmas tree. Now, I'm not going to rush towards this myself. I'll probably just go and find it in raid, but if you're somebody who has a Christmas tree and you're finding tons of baubles, then maybe it's an option. Just one thing to mention, if you're watching this video a couple of weeks after its publication date, it's very likely to be out of date, because the early wipe economy is very special and things change all the time. So I may well have another crafting video up at that point based on the things at the time. But once players progress through the hideout, prices do dramatically change and what's in demand changes. So watch out for that and just be careful. Don't blindly follow it, and make sure you check the prices before you go and press craft. So with that, next up, go and check out my early game tricks for Tarkov stash management video to maximize the space that you have in your hideout in the early wipe. Otherwise, as usual, a big shout out to all my patrons. Hit all the buttons if you enjoyed the video, and as always, have fun in your raids.